All right. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another weekly episode and edition of Veg Networking, where vegan plant-based entrepreneurs get together to connect and collaborate and support each other. Today, we have a very special guest from About a Dog Rescue Society. Their mission is to rescue as many dogs as possible from homelessness and suffering, to find each one a warm and wonderful forever home. They are a 100% nonprofit registered Canadian charity and rely solely on donations. Every penny raised goes to the dogs. They do not have a shelter, and so they rely on a small group of wonderful volunteers and foster families to care for the dogs, conduct home visits, spread the word, and help them organize events. From Puerto Vallarta to Vancouver, ladies and gentlemen, help me welcome our special guest and co-founder of About a Dog Rescue Society, Mike Edwards.
Thank you very much. Pleasure to be here.
Yeah, thank you so much for being here, Mike. We're happy to jump into our conversation. We have 8 conversation starters or 8 questions to get to know a little bit more about you and what you're doing to make an impact in the vegan plant-based space. And we are thrilled to have our first special guest speaking from an animal rescue standpoint. So before getting into the business side of things, our first question is, what is your origin story for becoming plant-based vegan?
I think it started, well, I know it started without realizing when I was pretty young, maybe about 6 years old, long time ago. And I just refused to eat certain things that brought to me at dinner because it looked like a bird or it looked like, anything that looked like an animal, I just refused, I couldn't eat it. And back then, of course, it was just, I had my reasons, but it wasn't that I wanted to go plant-based. It wasn't even a phrase yet. It wasn't even, so that's where it started. And I didn't realize my mother was also vegan, but she didn't mention, she just cooked her own meal and of course presented the rest of the family the meal. So when I look back at it, I go, oh, I was always had this struggle with eating animals. And so that's where it really began. And then throughout my life, I ate meat, went back, then I would just stop eating it because I just, mid-bite, I would just say, I can't do this anymore. And then eventually about 7, 8 years ago, I just decided to, I can't eat animals anymore. So, and it's just, the transition was the easiest thing. I thought you'd have to, let's start from 1 meal a week, 2 meals a week, and then progress. And it was just one trip to a farmer's market, loaded the fridge up, and it was the easiest thing. And yeah, I couldn't imagine going back. But and there's also health reasons. How I felt after only a few days, the transition from pure to pure plant-based. I still remember that, just the amazing how you feel. And so my origins were many years ago without realizing it, but it's, animals always been a major thing in my life.
Excellent. Yeah, that's interesting, and it's nice to have people echo the fact that it isn't difficult, and it's not that there's a right or a wrong if it's easy or difficult, but it's nice to have advocates spreading the message that it really isn't that difficult once you make that connection with the animals. So thank you so much for being here. And our next question is in terms of, it's another origin story question, but it's more so centered around business and entrepreneurship. So what is your origin story when it comes to business and entrepreneurship?
It's, well, for the rescue, it started with simply volunteering for different organizations, the SPCA, any sort of small organizations, doing the little things. And I adopted a dog myself through a group in Puerto Vallarta. And that really led to me starting this group. But that really changed my life. And I adopted a dog, and I wanted to go there and bring another dog back to return the favor, to help someone else out, and just got involved and saw the dogs in the streets, saw the people getting involved and what they did to bring the dogs in their homes. And that really changed my life. And it just progressed to me deciding one day with my partner, Miss Lisa, let's do this on our own. We had a group of like-minded people, and let's do this. And so those are the origins to how this became. And it was more than just, we are a dog rescue. And in a sense, you rescue dogs and you find homes for them. Every dog its own, but it was more than that. It was idealism about spreading the word about compassion to animals and involving the communities. So it's progressed through that. But the origins were just simply adopting a dog and having such an effect on me that I wanted to do more.
Yeah, the origins for all of us, they always start small, but it really gets to a point where it starts to build momentum, and the old adage of it takes a village.
Absolutely.
So, what's the connection the from Puerto Vallarta to Vancouver? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, and it was simply that I, like many people, wanted to adopt a dog through a rescue group. I applied to many, many rescues, and this one person got back to me, and it happened to be in Puerto Vallarta. And I'd been to Puerto Vallarta, so I knew where this dog was coming from, but just going there and meeting the people and seeing how much compassion they had, how much they give of their lives, just without asking anything to help these dogs. And so they can have lives somewhere else, 4,000 kilometers away. And they don't ask anything. And just to see what they did to help these animals. And I guess I get asked, why Puerto Vallarta, why? And it doesn't matter for me. It happened, I formed this connection there. And it was to see what people did, gave up in their lives to help animals. And that's the connection. And I have a really close connection to Puerto Vallarta now. It's my second home.
Yeah, I can imagine. And I know in doing a little bit of digging before speaking with you today as our special guest, it's very clearly articulated on your website that you're ethical, honest, and a transparent rescue. Happy to answer all questions that people may have about how the donations flow and how they're spent. And so, you and I can chat about that offline, and I'm sure others will reach out and chat about that a little bit more offline with you as well. But it's nice to know that the transparency is there. I myself have not been to Puerto Vallarta, but definitely another reason to go if they have a bunch of compassionate animal welfare folks there. All right, well, interesting question here. Normally, a lot of our special guests have been in the food space. So I'm not sure where this question is going to go, but the third one is, what are some trends that you've been noticing in your industry?
Yeah, it's a bit, so we're a registered charity and dog rescue, so it is a bit different from other brands, but certainly with COVID, the amount of families wanting to foster dogs and adopt dogs has increased incredibly. People wanting to get involved, and so there's a big demand now that people are working from home, and I guess in the future a lot more people are working from home. It's an opportunity that people didn't have before to bring these dogs into their lives. So that's been the biggest trend where we're seeing people can't travel as much now, but people still want to get involved. So it's been such a positive outpouring of support, and a nice trend upwards of people wanting to bring animals into their home.
You're absolutely right. Not spending an hour commute there and back and then 8 hours at the office somewhere else. You're absolutely right. Being fortunate enough to actually be there with the animal and be able to take care of it as needed totally makes sense. And when reading more about you, I love the phrase, and it was the first phrase that came to mind when I was reading more about you and your team, which is adopt, don't shop. And so you're right. I think a lot of people are, there's a trend towards more value alignment and people really walking the walk and adopting and not shopping. So that makes total sense. Thank you for sharing. Okay, so first part of the question is, how long has About a Dog Rescue been around, and what has led you to this point? And the question is, where are you going in the future?
So we've been around 2 years. We're just about 2 years to the date that we brought our first dog to Vancouver with About a Dog. The group of us had previously worked with another rescue, so we had 4 years experience before this, but it's almost to date, 2 years. So we'll have an anniversary on our social media soon. And sorry, was the second part?
Yeah, it's where is About a Dog Rescue going in the future?
We're just going to continue, and it's not just the number of dogs. It's about being part of our communities. It's about in Puerto Vallarta, we're sponsor spay and neuter clinics. So the communities where we rescue dogs, they have access to free spay and neuter medications. Supporting local businesses. They've been hit hard by the COVID, and there's no support, financial support. So people are just out of work. So helping people, that giving back to the communities there, and as well as here, being a part of communities and groups and spread the word. So that is an ongoing goal, and keep seeing people want to get involved with their same ideals and keep progressing and support animal welfare. So I'm very positive in seeing about the future.
Yeah, where you're going in the future is keeping up the good fight, and where you're going in the future too is really providing, what's the word, like, for a lack of better words, providing joy and companionship to people in the community. Because I know for myself, working from home for quite some time, we were able to rescue a cat, and I said this before out on social media, was like, and I wasn't being facetious. Thank God to all the pets that are really like keeping things together for people, because this is a tough time right now. And so where you're going in the future, I think, is in a way building more family, building more community, and through the rescue. So that's amazing. So the next question is interesting, because we have not had the luxury of having a conversation with a registered charity owner yet, and that's what this next question is centered around. So aside from the obvious of you supporting your own registered charity, are there any other charitable organizations that you do support or look to support in the future?
We do. We one of the things we're coming up with an idea at the beginning. How do we recognize these dogs when they find families? And do something to give back to communities. So we work with a group, One Tree Planted. We're quite big, and they plant reforestation projects around the world, and they do BC as well. So for all our dogs that come here, they're donated. We donate trays in their names, and also dogs, unfortunately, that pass away in Puerto Vallarta. Not every dog that rescued makes it, but every dog gets honored and they have a living legacy. So that was something we found that gives back, and is in line with our ethics. And we do support Jane Goodall Foundation, PETA groups that, and it's not so much, we do it kind of quietly, but we do support other groups that do things. We sponsor orangutans, and other animal groups, we want to show our support to them as well. So absolutely, it's a major thing to help others as well, not just ask for help.
Yeah, wow. I mean, I'm a little bit green when it comes to the charitable space, and so my perception would have been that you're really focused on making yours tick. But I guess in hearing you speak, a lot of charities do support other charities, because you guys know how difficult it is and how that collective mentality is so important. That's incredible. So is it like one tree for one dog, or?
No, we do maybe 10 to 12 trees per dog. So they sell them in packages. So and it's a great thing to do. And I think we've seen other people, when we post their certificates and we show the people, they plant trees in honor of their dogs, and they kind of show people how to give back and get involved. It doesn't have to be with us. You can show your support to charitable groups in any way. So yeah, I mean.
It's absolutely fascinating to me, and we can talk about this more offline, but in my industry, I've always been fascinated by the living legacy of having a tree represent someone. Yeah, I think that's super powerful, like a grandchild swinging on a tree branch, and that tree represents the grandfather. Same thing for what you're doing with the dogs in the family. It's just totally in alignment and totally makes sense. That's amazing.
Well, they have such an impact on the lives of these families. And of course, vice versa, the families have such an impact where something that has to be a grand gesture. And it's actually, value-wise, it's not expensive to plant a tree, but it's potentially hundreds of years living legacy, something they deserve to be recognized.
And we all know dogs love trees.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so whether it's coming from whether your answer is coming from the lens of plant-based or entrepreneurship, either or both is fine. What are some books, podcasts, or apps that are really valuable to you, whether it's one or a couple that you would feel worthwhile sharing to those here with us today and also going to be listening?
That I have to say, I don't have too much to offer on, unfortunately. I do read publications on other rescues and find out what they're doing. But as for, I mean, I use apps for recipes, of course, plant-based. But I don't really have any podcasts. I'm sorry, I don't even listen to podcasts.
Yeah, and that's the thing too. Like, there's never in these conversations that we have, they're so loose, and there's never ever a right or a wrong answer. So that's totally fine, no problem at all. And with that being said, our previous special guests, one who is with us here, is here with us today, who was here, a couple of weeks ago. Feel free to check back on the previous ones, because there's lots of gold in terms of books, podcasts, and apps that other people have mentioned that even myself, I knew nothing about and have written down and found a lot of value in. So, all right. Okay. In terms of other brands or entrepreneurs, either or, are you finding that you're like keeping tabs on and supporting certain entrepreneurs and certain brands?
Yeah, I mean, I personally support my purchases, my personal purchases. I choose everything is plant-based. I've converted every cleaning product and everything is plant-based. Nothing's tested on animals. Actually, that's the main thing, not test on animals. But there are stores you can buy us from, and I prefer to go to them. My dog food now is plant-based. It's Virtue. I know you know them, and that's a product where, as we're a registered charity, it's not easy to just go promote things because we have to be very protective of our charitable status. So I wanted to. It wasn't about so much being plant-based, but I know what it can do to a body. So I wanted my dogs to try it, and I was amazed at the outcome. So that's something now I can promote, or not promote, but offer to my experience to other people, and it is my ideals to plant-based, but I can't push it on people. But these companies that I believe in and trust, that I can put forth to others, and that's one I'm on our website now that we're going to share the experience.
That's wonderful. Yeah, and that's always the question for our special guests, right? It's, we're a group of plant-based vegans, and so that's always the answer is sort of like, well, I love and support any brand and entrepreneur that's plant-based vegan themselves. So
exactly, yeah,
totally. But yeah, and you bring up a very, very good point too about the I don't want to say restrictions, but restrictions around being a charitable outfit and being cautious of your messaging and towing that line. So we can absolutely appreciate that. So thank you so much. Okie dokie. Well, that feels like it went super quick. We're already at the eighth.
It did, yeah.
We're already at the eighth question here, and that is, and we preface this by saying this every single time, in the fact that we are explicitly asking, and there's no wrong answer. If you don't have any, that's fine, but we are asking for your advice. So with that being said, do you have any little nuggets of advice that you would give to entrepreneurs who are listening?
Well, through this organization, and when people ask me, how did you build it and how do you grow? And we've had some success with donations and people getting involved. And people, they actually ask me, why do you not go out asking for donations that much? It's not that we can't use it, but we're lucky to get people coming to us. And I think the one thing I always say is just be sincere, and people see that. And I would say we're not selling dogs. They're adopted, and we match dogs with people, so it's a right fit for both. And I think people see that, and just through all our social media, involving their people, communities, the children that are involved, but they're so happy to be with dogs, and just they're making an impact even when they don't realize it. But it's all this, and I think sincerity is the key to everything. When people see that, you can trust the brand, and you trust the people you work with.
Definitely. So the advice out there for others is follow sincerity,
Yeah,
And what I also picked up on that too was whether the medium is social media or a blog or whatever it is, what I picked up on in your answer is tell stories.
absolutely. People love the stories, and that's where our name came from, About a Dog. Because every dog is a story, and the people involved with stories. And through our social media, it's important to connect people. It's not just pick a dog. People, and we've had people fly to Puerto Vallarta from the beginning to take their vacation there, to meet the people involved, to fly dogs back, and seeing that shows me that people are connecting to the stories.
Absolutely. Yeah, and through storytelling is where the sincerity actually shines, right?
Absolutely.
You don't need to try and find sincerity. It's like you just do what you're passionate about, do what's right, tell the story, and the sincerity kind of shines from there.
Absolutely.
Well, Mike, man, it was a pleasure getting to know you a little bit. And the
Yeah.
same way that we always end our special guest conversations is leaving the floor open with you and for you to take as long or as little as you feel that you need to say anything that was maybe missed or anything that you wanted to double down and hammer home. But the floor is yours, Mike.
Thank you. It'll probably be quick. I'm a person of a few words, but yeah, thank you very much for this. It's an honor, and seeing the growth of plant-based acceptance, and seeing before we were talking about stocks, before we were on here, and just some of the companies, and just to see the growth, and seeing people decide to go plant-based, our doctors saying, after seeing some of the stories, to see saying, we realize we can't, how can we eat animals and rescue them and work together? So it's amazing to see this progression, and thanks to groups like this. This is amazing. I was very excited to be a part of this, and it just shows me that it's not work, but everyone's passion is just moving forward.
Well,
Yeah,
listen, we're so happy to have you as a special guest and a member of Edge Networking, and it's wonderful to have somebody have the floor and really lean into talking about animal rights and animal welfare, because that's the thread that we all share here. And so, for those of you who are here and those of you who are going to be listening to this on a replay, you can find more about A Dog Rescue and Mike on the web at www.aboutadogrescue. Oh, let me get this right, just make sure. There we go. aboutadogrescuesociety.ca, and the same on Instagram at aboutadogrescuesociety. Thank you so much for being here, Mike.
my pleasure. Thanks so much for having me.